Okay, so this is the last lesson on parabolas. We're going to be writing the equations using some given information, okay? So if you look, we're looking all of these in standard form. That's what we did when we graphed, okay? So we should have a squared quantity on one side, and then a 4p value as a coefficient, and then a non-squared, most of the time binomial, okay? So if you take a look here, I'm going to give you the origin here as where my parabola is centered. So that's another way of saying the vertex is 0, 0, right? And then I give you the focus. So if I sketch this real quick, and it doesn't have to be perfect, there's my vertex. Then I'm going to a focus, right, of 0, -2. So that tells me my parabola has to be opening down because my focus always has to be inside the parabola, okay? So that means that if it's facing down, I've got to have an x squared, right? Because x squared is either facing up or facing down. Now the reason it's facing down is in my equation, I'm going to have a negative 4p. Okay, so those are the two things, remember, that determine our directionality of our parabola. So up here, we had a y squared, right? And we had a positive 4p, so we opened to the right, okay? That was the first thing we always determined when we graph. So we're using the same logic here. With my sketch, it's facing down, so I know those two pieces of information. Since I didn't shift the vertex, I have this form of the equation, right? Without any h and k. So I know that. And then the last thing I need to find is you always need p. So remember, p is the distance from the vertex to the focus, okay? So in this case, so there, that's going to tell me that p is 2. So I'm just going to plug that in. So then I get -4 times 2, right? That's my x squared equals y. So therefore, x squared equals -8y, okay? So that's the equation of my parabola there, all right, in standard form. Now if I look at the next guy, similar scenario, we have centered at the origin. So again, my vertex is 0, 0, okay? But now I just change it and I give you a directrix instead. So if this is at 0, 0 and my directrix is at y equals 3, 1, 2, 3, I know my parabola has to open up in the opposite direction of that, right? So that means it's opening down. Now, so that tells me that I have an x squared again, and then I have a -4p, okay? So when I go to write my equation, since again, I don't have any shift in the vertex, it's a -4py. Then if I look here, my p-value is also, right, similar to up above, the distance from the vertex to the directrix as well. So in this case, p is going to be 3, okay? So then, x squared equals -4 times 3y, so x squared equals -12y, all right? Then my next example for number 3, I change it slightly and we do shift the vertex, okay? So now the vertex is -1 and 2. So that's telling me this is my h and that's my k. So my equation is going to get slightly more complicated than these two, but not too bad, all right? So if I sketch this guy, I got -1 and then up 2. So that's my vertex. And then my focus is at -1, 0. So here's my focus. So similar to this example, right, we can see, right, that we are facing down. Again, I don't know why that keeps happening, but it does. So now we have this. Okay, so that tells me that, okay, it's facing down. So I got an x squared and a -4p, right? If it had been facing up, then it'd be a +4p, okay? So it just kind of depends on the directionality here. So that tells me now if I come over in my equation, I've got this guy, x minus h squared equals -4p, right? My 4p has to be negative, and then y minus k, okay? So now I know my vertex, right? This is minus a -1, so that's +1, all right? Always opposite. And then I know y minus 2, because that's my shift. And then I just need to figure out p. So if I look again, p is gonna be 2, so that means I'm gonna do -4 times 2. So my final equation, you don't have to distribute anything, you just leave it in the HK form, is that, okay? -4p facing down, x squared, everything checks. So now let's look at our last one, okay? We have this, okay, so I give you the vertex. Okay, so vertex here is 1, and then up 2. There's my vertex. And then I have a point that is 2, 1. So that's like somewhere here. So if I connect those two, my parabola looks like that. Okay, now this is not any special point. This is just a random point. So when we go to write the equation, I can't assume anything about that point, all right? That is not on the lattice rectum, right? The distance across here, there's nothing I can assume about the point, just a random point. So the things I do know is, again, this is, and I'm sorry all my examples are facing down here, but I've got an x squared, and I've got a -4p, okay? And I know my vertex is 1, 2, so therefore that tells me what h and k are. So I can write part of my equation. So it should be x minus h squared equals, I should have a -4p, y minus k. And when I plug it in, I'm gonna plug in my h and k, so x minus 1 squared. And then -4p and y minus 2. So I have all that, but unlike my previous examples, I don't have the ability to find p. However, I do know an x and a y value. So these 2 points are gonna get plugged in for x and y. All right, just like you would with any equation. If it's a point on that graph, okay, on that line, that function, it should work in that equation. So this should be 2 minus 1 squared equals -4p. And then this is 1 minus 2. Okay, so then if I do that, what is it? Okay, so this is 1 squared equals -4p times -1. So that means I have 1 equals negative, so it's 4p. So p is 1/4, right? So therefore, when I go to write my equation, it's x minus 1 squared equals -4 times 1/4, okay, times y minus 2, which is final answer. And you don't have to show the 1 there, you could just have a negative, okay? But that is our final answer for that guy, okay? Just so you know, you didn't actually really have to find P, okay? You should have, let me just see here, this is probably, yeah. You should have solved right here, and if you look, 4p is 1, so you could have just plugged in the 1 right away, okay? But that's what we have there, okay? So that's my final form of the equation, all right? And yeah, that's it. So use those examples to help you out, okay? Again, I apologize, all my examples were facing down, but on your homework, they will be facing different directions, okay? So just be careful. Left and right is always a y squared, up and down is always an x squared, and then depending on which direction it goes, the 4p is either positive or negative, okay? All right, Please email me if you have questions, all right? Check your answers on the answer key, and I hope you guys are doing well.